I want to talk about my journey from toxic new age spirituality to a more grounded spirituality. I had my full-blown spiritual awakening in 2014. I did have a lot of things leading up that created that to happen in my life. I had a really bad breakup whenever I was in like 10th grade, which, I was really young at the time, but to 15-year-old Aubrey, that was a really big deal. And it started making me ask the bigger questions about life. And it's funny because when you start asking those questions, the universe does start to answer it over time. To this point, I grew up Christian and the people around me were Christian, and I was getting older and I was kind of like maturing and trying to understand like what I felt about God. And I'd been reading certain books about it, and I'd read the book Heaven is for Real. And that kind of solidified for me the belief in an afterlife for sure. Started watching Long Island Medium, and I really love this show, I Survived Beyond and Back, which I've made certain videos about that on my TikTok. It's about near-death experiences and how they go to the other side and they have certain experiences and then they live to tell the tale. I have this memory after that bad breakup when I was asking the bigger questions, and I was literally yelling at God, like, why is it so bad here? Like, if it's so great on the other side, then why are we here? And it's just funny how the universe started to answer that for me, right? Okay, so then I go to college, and that's when in 2014 I have like my full-blown spiritual awakening. I don't even remember what led up to it. Like, I think it was because I really got into like veganism at the time, and in which I am still a vegetarian to this day. A lot of people in my life thought that was just a phase, but it ended up not being just a phase. But I was younger, right? And all I really cared about was how to be skinny and how to get another boyfriend, really, or to manifest my ex back. So I was searching something about veganism, I think, and I came across Ralph Smart, and he mentioned something, and y'all know Ralph Smart, Infinite Waters, and he mentioned something about the law of attraction. And when he mentioned that, I went down the rabbit hole. I watched The Secret, I read the Seth material, I watched all the Abraham Hicks stuff, and that was it for me. I was like, okay, I'm the creator of my reality, and I went down the positive thinking train. Looking back, I don't think that was good for me long term. I was an 18-year-old that you're telling, okay, you're in charge of your reality, you're God, basically, which creates like this God complex, like that egotistical nature. But it also has this other thing to it where anytime that I was going down a negative spiral, I would beat myself up and I'd be really mad at myself. So, and I tell clients this all the time, like, if you don't have an ounce of self-love, going down that rabbit hole deeply and down the positive thinking train is not going to work for you, because you're not going to have any compassion for yourself when you're in the harder moments. And that's what I did. But I will say it woke me up at the time. Like, that's what woke me up to everything. So like, I am forever grateful for it. And I tell clients this too, like, if your brain is like actually sick with thoughts, yes, going down the more positive thinking route may be good for you for a while, because my mind was sick with thoughts. I was just, everything about myself was negative. I was like overthinking. My brain was just like this overcritical soup. And at least with starting to be aware of my thoughts, that did start to help me to like have more clarity at least. And I am grateful for that. And I do think it helped me at the time. But it kind of went on too long. The first thing that I want to manifest is I want to either manifest my ex back or I want to manifest a new boyfriend, okay? And that just tells you where my mindset was at the time. Like, I didn't feel any higher purpose. I didn't know what my purpose was. Like, I was just very much trying to get my things, right? And I think a lot of us go through that in the New Age spirituality. And then we realize, wait, that doesn't even really matter that much. And because I didn't have any ounce of self-love, the second that I manifested, because I did manifest someone, I did. But looking back, it was a test. It was a test from the universe to be like, this new guy is exactly like this other guy that you dated. are you going to do that again? And I said, yep, I want to be with my ex. So of course I would choose this guy again. So I did manifest him, but I wasn't ready. Like, I wasn't ready for the good manifestation. And in a way, this was a lesson. I had to learn the lesson the hard way. They don't talk about that. Abraham Hicks doesn't talk about that, how you will be given opportunities to show your growth. The second I saw someone that resembled what I wanted, I clung to him. I didn't know at the time what anxious attachment is. I didn't know that I had all these abandonment issues, and that's why I was so like clingy and like wanted love so badly. And that person was abusive. They were not good to me. I could do a whole other video about that whole relationship. But basically, I stayed in that relationship. It made me go into a hole. And this is going to sound woo-woo. And I know this is literally a video talking about grounded spirituality. But I do believe that relationship, the toxicity of it started to manifest in my physical body. And you don't have to believe that, but I truly believe that that's what happened. They were linked. I had something called, and I could do a whole other video just on this, so I'm not going to go way too into it, but I did have a molar pregnancy. It's something where the sperm and the egg come together, and instead of creating a baby, it creates these mutated cells. It's literally like a cluster of grapes in your uterus. And I had to get that taken out, and it kept growing back. So I ended up having to get chemo treatment for it. It was a low dose chemo. It was fine. I went through the treatment and it did help. It cured it. But that was the lowest time in my life. And at that time, I literally thought that God was forsaken me. Like, I thought that God was punishing me. I thought, this is my fault because I'm thinking too negatively. That's the bad part about New Age spirituality. That's the bad part about this positive thinking thing. Because and it makes me really upset for past me. Like, why would this poor 19-year-old blame herself for this happening? And yes, on some level, I did choose that partner, and I was choosing that toxicity in my life. But no one had taught me why. Like, I didn't know my patterns. No one was teaching me my patterns. And in the spiritual community, they weren't talking about that much. Teal Swan was talking about it a little bit, but she hadn't even gone all the way in talking about it. I don't think. Not in the way that she does now. And even at the time, I had a feeling that was my wake-up call. But I wasn't strong enough to leave that relationship. I stayed in that relationship for another year and a half. And again, I could do a whole video about just that on its own. I finally did end up getting out of that relationship though in 2017. That is a God thing in itself on how I was able to get out. Again, another video. But in 2017, I graduated college and I moved back home. That's when I started having all these big realizations about why this happened to me and figuring out, manifestation, and this is where I find Lacy Phillips. This is where I went deep into Teal Swan and the completion process. And she even has videos about spirituality 1.0, spirituality 2.0, spirituality 3.0. That I was going through 2.0 at the time. I was having my second spiritual awakening where we were going this path, and I was going that path because I was running away from the negative. I was manifesting in order to manifest out of the negative. That's spiritual bypassing. And finally, I hit a brick wall where, hey, you can't go any farther till you face the stuff that you were running from. That's what happened. So 2017, 2018, I dived deep into that. I found Lacy Phillips. She literally changed my life. I started to look at manifestation in a different way. I started to realize that manifestation is more about self-worth, but also it's more complicated than how they want to make it seem. And it's very much more about your subconscious. Your subconscious is not something that just changes with you doing affirmations. It's this deep inner work. Me diving into my shadow, me diving into my inner child, trying to heal her, really led to me activating my psychic gifts. Yes, I always think that I was psychic. I was always claircognizant. One of my biggest shameful things when I was a kid was being a know-it-all or talking too much, because I did know a lot and I would pick up on things that other people didn't. but I wasn't able to truly awaken them and understand them until I faced the dark parts of myself. Because it was almost like, and I've heard this example before, and I love this example, that we're a light, right? Our pure soul essence, like we're this light bulb that's just shining. But once life happens to us and we take on all these beliefs from other people and we take on the shame, it becomes like this lampshade over the light. The light never goes away. The brightness of the light never actually goes away. It's just this lampshade on top of it. So I always had my gifts, but I needed to remove the lampshade, or at least part of the lampshade, to understand the gifts. And that's what happened. And when I did this, I started to feel so much more embodied and actually in my body. Because I feel like before, when I was into all this like higher concepts, I was very up here. And my energy is already kind of like that. Like I'm already kind of up here, and I have to make a point to ground myself into the earth. And whenever I did the deeper work, I was grounding myself. I felt more like, okay, I'm not trying to escape this human realm. I actually have to learn how to be spirit, be this oneness, and live it separately. Because I think a lot of us, when we first get on the spiritual quest, we kind of want to escape our humanness and we want to go to all these higher realms. But what actually is the beauty is bringing down those higher realms into your human life and actually living your human life from that place. And that's what I kind of started doing. And it wasn't overnight, okay? But those are the realizations I was having, right? 2017, 2018. And then into 2019, 2020, that's when I actually started my business. That's when I actually stepped into my power, stepped into my gifts. And I can do a whole other video talking about how I did that, because it's one thing finding your purpose, but it's another thing actually living it. And I have a whole course about that if you need help with it, or you can ask me questions. There isn't one absolute truth, because I do see there's certain truths in the positive thinking thing. Like I know that there are truths in there, but it is also true that your patterns are what are manifesting your reality too. It's all connected. And I think that's another thing that I started to, and that's what I hope that you get from this video, is to understand that there are nuances. There isn't just one way, and everybody's way is going to be different. Spirituality is just about being in contact and being in communication and connection and being in relationship with something bigger than yourself, and having this meaningful, deep feeling within you that you know that your life means something. It's this meaningful feeling. I don't think that spirituality has to involve some of the topics that we always associate with it. I started to just see a gray area, and I started to understand, okay, it may not be like this for everyone, and certain things could work for different people. And I always love the saying that Bashar would have, where it's not this or that, it's this and that. And when you start to live your life in that way, think about how that actually represents oneness, right? That's what God is, everything, right? Oneness is everything. And when you start to have that, when you're not very like concrete in your beliefs, and you actually start to be more open and to try to understand all perspectives, that's where the magic happens. That's when you find out what actually feels like your ultimate truth. That's how I went from New Age spirituality to grounded spirituality. And there's a lot more little stories that could go within that, but I just wanted to post that because I wish that I had a video like this whenever I was 18, 19. So I hope this helped you guys. And I just hope that you're gentle with yourself on your spiritual journey.